If I can just switch gears a little, tell me what are some of your memories of the first few meetings of the AAES?
Right. I think that I remember going to the meeting of the International Endocrine Surgical Society in 1979. I can even picture the hotel that we went in and went down. Mm-hmm. And there was a big discussion there. The Europeans were a little bit ahead of us in organizing. There was a man named Peter Hyman from Norway, from Bergen, Norway, who was instrumental in organizing the International Endocrine Surgical Society. And at that meeting, we all met and said, wouldn't it be wonderful to have an American Association of Endocrine Surgery? Mm-hmm. So, let's see, so I think Norman Thompson, Jack Monchek, Orlo Clark, excuse me, from Perth,
Tony
Edis, right. And I all met, and we were very, very enthusiastic, and we thought there was a great need. There was a lot of things that happened to advance endocrinology, and the whole gut as an endocrine organ was just developing. And if you think about it, in the 50s, the Zollinger-Ellison syndrome was discovered, and later in the 60s, McGuigan had the first immunoassays for gastrin, and then finding gastrin at that time. And if you look at many of the endocrinopathies, the Conn syndrome at Michigan was in the mid-50s. Theos were being explored, calcitonin, medullary cancer. The thyroid was not separated. It was thought of as an undifferentiated thyroid cancer until the mid-50s. Huh. At the Cleveland Clinic, Hazard and Hawk are the ones that did that. So there were many, many advances. And it was general surgeons were doing, I guess, most of the thyroid surgery and most of the endocrine surgery. There was no discipline, and we thought that it would be a good thing to get it all together and to advance education and teaching of the fellows and advance the whole field of endocrine surgery, as well as advance clinical and research as well.
When you were, I think, the second president?
I was.
And what were the biggest issues that, or maybe not issues, what were the big developments in endocrine surgery? I mean, what was everybody talking about when you were the president?
Sure. I think calcitonin was a very, very big thing. What we wanted to do was to advance teaching and to I think the whole concept of medullary cancer, the MEN2 syndrome, the MEN1 had been defined a little bit earlier, but the MEN2, what was originally called Sippel syndrome, medullary cancers with Theos and whatnot, that happened a little later in the 2B. All this was very, very exciting. In fact, we were doing calcium infusions at that time, and actually did for the release of hormones, and did some of the early work, calcium and magnesium infusions in medullary cancer and in carcinoid tumors and in insulinomas. And so it was a fascinating time. But the whole thing was really to advance the teaching, research, and to get everybody together in one group. And I can think of those early meetings very, very, very well. I remember them very nicely.
And so how many people were at the early meetings?
I read somewhere that 96 people attended the first meeting. I think we all stayed in a motel up in Ann Arbor. And the meeting was in the auditorium there, which made it very nice. But many of those people were people from Michigan, so there really weren't that many outside people. I think it was less than 80 people.
Wow.
Got together at that time.
Right.
And the second meeting, if I recall, was in Washington, D.C., and Glenn Gilhute had a nice meeting down there again.
Mm-hmm.
And the third meeting, I think after I was president, Stan Friesen was from Kansas, and he was very, very good in MEN1 syndrome and all the GI endocrinopathies and all the GI tract as an endocrine organ. And Stan gave a nice talk at that time. He was very interested in music. And so he gave a talk, and Beth, his wife, if I remember correctly, they were playing music in the background, and it was
Wow.
it was a real show.